Good afternoon, people. Yeah, don't say it. Another video on the Dave's Diary series, and yes, it's about the MFT style of top. Of course, what else would I be making a video of? Okay, this has kind of confirmed my point. I had mentioned earlier in a previous video, you figure out which one, that when I went to mark the holes prior to, of course, drilling them, obviously, I had a little bit of issue with the 3-4-5ing method, or the 6-8-10, as it were, the intermediate set of the bars that I've got for this purpose. I had previously started at this point here and drilled my first lot of holes along here. I'm calling that the setup line or reference line. Then I used the bars to do the squaring method for this line. This is the one that will generate the most, in my opinion, accurate square measurement. They should all be square, I hear you say. Well, I agree, but my initial setup was here for that purpose, and for the track saw approach for cutting panels, etc., for later on. I then had this still area blank, and then when I set it up the other bars later on to mark out these lines. When I did, as I said, there was one pivot point here that was part of the diagonal, and in the corner here, remembering none of these holes were here yet, and I put a bar up there, so no wriggle room here, no wriggle room here, up there where it was supposed to, where the bars intersect, making it square. Oh, there was a wiggle in the two bars, but between the two bars, more correctly, in the bushings that are in each of the bars. And I thought, that's not quite correct. So anyway, I did the best thing available at the time. I put a square on here, ran it up the side, made sure it was nice and square, clamped them down, and then marked out all the holes, drilled them with that concern that it's not 100%. So I checked it. I put a bar in that had 2 registration pins down this end and 1 down that end, thinking that, and logically, that the distance from any of these points to there is the critical measurement. Square is, of course, they're going to both fall together if correct. Anyway, I put a bar in there with 2 locating points, brought the other pin out here, and I rolled them, the bar and the pins into position, and it went in. So all 3 of them went in. The pins were the 0 wriggle pins, what I've been referring to, the 20mm stainless steel pins or standoffs. And they went in, and I thought, oh, that's really good. But they were tight, meaning that to some hundredths of a millimetre, literally, I'm not kidding, that's the accuracy I wound up with there. So I was pretty darn happy and relieved, I've got to say. Then I showed how, by a way of check, I reset the diagonal bar from this point, where originally it was, back out to that point there, and the 0 wriggle dowels went in effortlessly. So I was going, wow, that's pretty impressive. I'm happy with that. I couldn't have been happier. That it's tight, I'm going to live with. The rocket scientists amongst you would have pointed out, but I didn't have these 3 panels tied together, which is correct. So therefore, it could have moved the panel out and allowed for that discrepancy. But considering I got that distance pretty much correct. It's kind of a situation where it's either going to work or it's not. But I got that one to work. I was happy. Diagonal, I was happy. Yeah, you could argue that the panels moved. You still could. So now I've come down to do the couple of rows down this end, and I've set it up in the same manner. I set up here, no wriggle pin in there, nice and tight. Come out here, the 6 spaces, nice and tight. Come across here, 8. I've put one of the wee bushings in the bottom layer, and I've put the pin in. That does have a little bit of a wiggle. Now let me show you the concern. You can see the movement. So I've effectively replicated what I've just been describing. I've put a bar in here with 2 pins in the already drilled holes, and then I put, oh, you could hear that, straight in. The wiggle has been diminished by about 75%, 80%. There's virtually no wiggle in this bar. This is a better way of doing it rather than a square on here, because there was no 100% guarantee that the edge of the sheet and these pins were spot on. I think I would have said they were, but that's what I'm saying. Besides which, it would have only gone to this point at that stage, because these 2 holes hadn't been drilled. I've done them subsequently. Anyway, what's that telling me is, and this is where I was trying to be as forthright and, as I possibly could, would I recommend this approach for doing the MFT style of top? And of course it is, hell yeah, I would. Would I recommend it for doing it in the manner that I'm doing it, with the 2 layers, which does demand a higher level of accuracy? You go, hang on, it's either accurate or it's not, one way or the other. I'll go, fine, you can live with that idea, and you would not find an issue with that. I understand that, but because I've had the experience that I've had with the demands, and I've thought about it a bit, I suggest that the 2 layers requires you to go to this stupid length of accuracy. Otherwise it's going to bite you in the butt, and you will come back and say, oh yeah, Dave did have a point. Couldn't understand it, but it did have a point. Anyway, long story short, another saying I'm going to have to get rid of this year, by putting this bar in from known points, I have got this point that secured the wiggle almost 100%. So I'm much happier now marking these holes and relying on the fact that when I come to test it, once all the holes are drilled and I put a bar in with multiple pins in it, they won't be tight. They will be just the spacings that's required. So it's a little bit of relief, I've got to say, but it's having not simply the tools at hand, but a methodology to follow, a process. And I hark back quite often, because he's a bit of an asset, is Peter, what is his name? The PAF system creator. Peter, anyway. Parfit, I think his name is it? Let's hope so. He said that even using his very well engineered set of jigs and rules and accessories, there is still a process that you would be wise to follow to reduce the possibility of introducing accumulative errors. Words again carefully chosen. Ditto here, and that this is part of it. Yes, if all of my parts that I've cobbled together, created, etc., like these and like the bushes, if these were 100% matched, then you wouldn't have to double check. But double checking is never a bad thing. But because there is some fiddle potential in it, we're trying to reduce it, and having this back up your square has shown me the benefit. In fact, I could now, conceivably, take that diagonal bar off because I have got the accuracy obtained from it already built into these holes. And utilising the holes is what we want, after all. And why I also said, probably over-egging it a bit, that when people are just building an ordinary MFT top, not denigrating it being ordinary, but a straightforward one without the two layers, when you come to make a panel up like that wants to go onto the top, you need to have some sort of accuracy built into the whatever method you use to employ to make the holes. Not simply that, you need the process. So the tools plus the process permits you a little bit more of restful sleep at night doing this sort of work. Therein lies what I say for what I'm doing here. Now, all I need to do is don't even have to clamp this. It's that tight. I can put my bushings from this rail, which is a bit of a bummer, into this rail, mark the holes as is required of me, and yeah, I'm away laughing. Another thing that it's this little drill bit, the centre drill bit that I've been talking about is the one with a tiny little hole. It is possible to use a brad point bit in these, not that bushing, but in these bushings to mark the hole, because its tolerance is pretty darn good. And I could do that if I wanted. I'm not. I'm just making a comment that this and this bush were made for each other, and they even have a tolerance. Otherwise, you're going to chew the living bejesus out of the bushing and probably bugger up your drill bit. So they have to have a tolerance. This is 8 millimeters. This bore is 8.1. That 1/10 of a millimeter is sufficient to create some of the issues I'm talking about. It's another bush in there, but the two of them together tie it together very well. Thank you very much. So, I think that sometimes multiple, and that's why I did two, not one, multiple items will find the inbuilt errors or discrepancies or tolerances and effectively counter each other. If they don't counter each other, having that extra one's not going to make any difference. But if they do, it's not a bad thing, because there's no real wriggle in this at all. So anyway, that's a sigh of satisfaction and relief, I've got to say. So now I can drill these holes and be done with. That means that this bottom layer has 240 holes, will have 240 holes in it. Crazily, I'm thinking about adding some, but only in specific areas. And I'm going to be using maybe some additional holes down here. I may place a couple of strategic holes at 50 millimeter increments, probably not between the holes this way, but between a set of 4 holes. Don't know whether that's actually required, but this area is probably going to be the area where there will be more differences in setup for the ripping purposes. Alternatively, I'll leave this alone and do it to a panel. After all, that you could almost say is a sacrificial panel. This may be more of a leave it alone type panel, where I don't want to make the too much, don't want to adulterate it too much. Thing is, because I'm sitting on another workbench right below it, I can't use a lot of the clamps and what have you that have to go through multiple layers and maybe even hook under. So I'm constrained a bit there. So making accessories may be that I need to make it in that and add a layer or two so I can get extra depth for some of the things as yet unknown. Yeah, all of these thoughts have to be considered so that when we come to work with it, we've at least got the workaround, or at least understood that we can't do certain things. So I'll work within the confines that the top will give me. But at the moment, hey, as I said, a bit of a sigh before of satisfaction and relief. I'm happy again. Rightio, moving on. It's almost tea time. What I'm going to have tonight? An Egyptian kebab or Vietnamese curry? Yeah, don't know. Anyway. Yeah, sigh of satisfaction again. Okay, that's it. See you later. Bye now.